There are things buried inside Pit and the Pendulum that most audiences never noticed. Secrets hidden in the castle walls, secrets built into the sets, secrets buried beneath the marketing, the performances, and the story itself. Roger Corman's 1961 horror classic wasn't just a gothic thriller, it was a psychological trap, engineered to unsettle viewers in ways they were never meant to fully understand. And some of the most fascinating truths behind it were never part of the official story. Here are the dark secrets behind Pit and the Pendulum, and the hidden truth they didn't want you to see. Number 1. The movie sold itself as Poe. But most of the story isn't Poe at all. Edgar Allan Poe's original The Pit and the Pendulum is incredibly short. It's basically a single nightmare scenario. One man, one dungeon, one pit, and one descending blade. There's no castle intrigue, no dead wife, no Nicholas Medina, no family curse, and no elaborate psychological mystery. So when American International Pictures marketed this as a major Poe adaptation, they were stretching the truth a lot. Screenwriter Richard Matheson was handed the impossible job of turning a very brief story with almost no dialogue and almost no plot into a feature-length film. His solution was brilliant. He kept the pit, the pendulum, and Poe's sense of suffocating dread. But he invented nearly everything else. The characters, the twists, the marriage at the center of the story, Nicholas's breakdown, Elizabeth's deception, that all came from Matheson. In other words, Pit and the Pendulum is less a direct adaptation than an original gothic horror screenplay inspired by Poe's imagery. But Poe's name sold tickets, and the studio leaned on that hard. For years, the film was remembered mainly as another Poe movie, when in reality Matheson created most of what audiences actually love about it. That decision to present invention as adaptation set the tone for how much of this production was framed, softened, or hidden. Number 2. Vincent Price's performance is one of the reasons the film still works. Vincent Price gives one of the most memorable performances of his career as Nicholas Medina, a man unraveling inside a castle full of trauma, guilt, and buried horror. His breakdown scenes don't just feel theatrical, they feel deeply committed, even raw. Part of that power came from Roger Corman's direction. Corman understood atmosphere, and he reportedly stripped the set down during some of Price's most intense scenes, reducing distractions and creating a more isolated environment. Whether or not every later retelling of these methods is accurate, the result on screen is undeniable. Price looks truly haunted. He doesn't just play fear, he plays fragility. His voice shifts, his posture collapses, and by the final act, he seems like a man possessed by family history itself. The film depends on Nicholas's psychological collapse feeling real enough to carry all the gothic excess around it, and Price absolutely delivers that. It's one of the great performances in 1960s horror, and it deserves to be remembered as more than camp or melodrama. There's craft in every tremble. Number 3. The pendulum sequence feels dangerous because it was designed to feel real. The pendulum scene is the image most associated with this film, a giant blade swinging lower and lower above a helpless man strapped to a slab. It's one of the most iconic horror set pieces of its era. What gives it so much force is its physicality. Corman and his team built a large practical pendulum rig and shot it in a way that emphasized weight, movement, and momentum. Even if movie magic and editing did plenty of the work, the blade feels heavy because the production wanted the audience to believe it could really kill. That tactile realism matters. You can hear the swing. You can feel the air displacement in the sound design. The scene has danger because it isn't overpolished. It has that rough, mechanical quality that makes old-school horror so effective. It looks like something that could go wrong. Whether later stories about how close the prop came to actual injury are exaggerated or not, the important truth is this. The filmmakers wanted genuine fear, not a clean illusion, and that decision gave the scene a physical intensity that still holds up. Number 4. Barbara Steele brought an eerie distance to Elizabeth, and it changed the movie. Barbara Steele's presence in Pit and the Pendulum is unforgettable. She has that classic gothic horror face. Elegant, mysterious, and somehow unsettling, even when perfectly still. As Elizabeth, she becomes the center of the film's most disturbing turns. What makes her performance work so well is the emotional distance she brings to the role. Elizabeth is supposed to feel just slightly out of reach, not fully readable, not fully trustworthy, almost ghost-like even before the story pushes her in that direction. Steele gives the character that quality beautifully. Roger Corman was known for shooting fast, and actors often had to find their footing quickly. In that kind of environment, some performances become more instinctive than calculated. Steele's work here has that quality. She doesn't over-explain the character. She lets the coldness remain. The result is one of the film's greatest strengths. You never feel entirely safe around Elizabeth, even before you know why. Number 5. The castle sets were designed to make you uneasy. One of the film's greatest secret weapons is its production design. Daniel Haller's sets are gorgeous, but they're also oppressive. The castle doesn't just look haunted, it feels psychologically hostile. Hallways seem too narrow, rooms feel too tight, arches and spaces seem subtly off, as if the architecture itself is pressing inward. That isn't an accident. Haller understood that horror could come not just from monsters or violence, but from space itself. A room can make you nervous. A staircase can make you feel unstable. A corridor can feel unsafe even if nothing is in it. Pit and the Pendulum uses that principle constantly, and what makes it even more impressive is that Haller achieved this on a modest budget. With flats, lighting, paint, and smart design choices, he created a castle that feels physically wrong in exactly the way a nightmare does. Not wildly distorted, just wrong enough that your body notices before your mind does. That's one reason scenes of people simply walking through the castle feel tense. The environment is already doing half the horror work. Number 6. The film's buried alive horror comes from a very real historical fear. At the center of Pit and the Pendulum is one of humanity's oldest terrors, being buried alive. That fear wasn't invented by Poe, and it wasn't invented by horror movies. In the 18th and 19th centuries, premature burial was a widespread cultural anxiety. Medical science wasn't always reliable at confirming death, and conditions like coma, paralysis, and catalepsy could be mistaken for it. That fear became so common that so-called safety coffins were actually developed, some equipped with bells or air tubes in case the buried person awoke underground. So when the film reveals Elizabeth apparently entombed alive, it taps into something far deeper than a simple shock twist. It activates a primal panic, consciousness trapped in darkness, unable to move, unable to escape, knowing help will never come. That's why the coffin imagery in this film lands so hard. It isn't just gothic decoration. It's a horror rooted in real history, and audiences feel that truth even if they don't know the details. Corman understood exactly how powerful that fear was, and he built the film around it. Number 7. Les Baxter's score does more than accompany the horror. It amplifies it physically. Les Baxter's music for Pit and the Pendulum is one of the film's great achievements. The score doesn't simply underline scenes. It presses on them, swells through them, and sometimes feels like it's breathing with the castle. Part of what makes it so effective is its use of deep, ominous, low-end sound, even within the limitations of early 1960s theatrical audio. Baxter's score creates a sense of looming dread by anchoring key scenes with dark, sustained musical pressure. You don't just hear the music, you feel its weight. This is especially true in the Pendulum sequence and the film's major psychological breakdown scenes. The score creates bodily tension, your chest tightens, your nerves start to hum. It's not subtle in the usual sense, but it works almost subconsciously. That's one reason the film can feel flatter on weak speakers or tiny modern devices. A lot of its power lives in atmosphere, resonance, and sonic pressure. In a theater, or at least with decent sound, the movie becomes much more physical. Baxter's score isn't just beautiful, it's one of the film's hidden instruments of attack. Number 8. The use of color is deliberate, especially red. Cinematographer Floyd Crosby made Pit and the Pendulum look far richer than its budget would suggest, and one of his smartest choices was how he used color, especially red, as part of the film's emotional design. In the early sections of the film, the palette leans cool. Blues, greens, grays, stone tones. The world feels damp, funereal, controlled. But as Nicholas's sanity begins to break, Warmer colors start pushing their way into the film, especially red. By the time the story reaches the torture chamber and the final descent into madness, red dominates. It's in the walls, the drapery, the lighting, the atmosphere itself. It doesn't just suggest blood or danger, it becomes the visual expression of a mind collapsing under inherited trauma and terror. This progression is one of the film's cleverest artistic moves. Even if you never consciously track it, you feel it. The movie gets hotter, more aggressive, more unstable. The colors start doing psychological work before the plot fully catches up. That's not accidental beauty. That's strategy. Number 9. The final image is so powerful because it completes the movie's central nightmare. The ending of Pit and the Pendulum is one of the great final shocks in classic horror. Elizabeth, revealed as part of the scheme that drove Nicholas toward madness, ends up entombed alive behind a wall. Her punishment becomes the very terror that haunted the film from the beginning. It's a brutal ending because it closes the circle perfectly. Everything in the film, the family history, the fear of premature burial, the castle's obsession with confinement, Nicholas's trauma, collapses into one final image, a face trapped in darkness, screaming where no one can hear. Some accounts over the years have suggested earlier script ideas or alternate concepts may have taken the ending in an even bleaker direction. Whether or not those ideas ever moved beyond the page, the released ending is devastating enough on its own. It doesn't just end the story, it seals it shut. And that image lingers because it expresses the film's deepest fear in its purest form. Not death, but conscious imprisonment. That's the nightmare Pit and the Pendulum never stops returning to. Number 10. The real secret is that this was smarter than anyone expected. This is the hidden truth behind Pit and the Pendulum. It wasn't just a quick gothic shocker made to cash in on Poe. It was a carefully constructed psychological horror film made by artists who understood how to manipulate image, sound, space, and performance to create dread. Richard Matheson used a tiny Poe story as the seed for a far more elaborate tale of madness and cruelty. Roger Corman directed with speed, but also with real style and discipline. Vincent Price gave the movie emotional gravity. Daniel Haller turned cheap sets into nightmare architecture. Les Baxter weaponized music. Floyd Crosby used color like a fuse burning toward explosion. That's why the movie still works. Not because of nostalgia, not because it's fun for its time, because it was built with intelligence, because it understood that horror isn't just about what you show the audience, it's about what you make them feel, without fully realizing why. And maybe that's what makes the film endure. Beneath the studio marketing, beneath the Poe label, beneath the B-movie reputation, there's a real work of art in there, a haunted one. So that's Pit and the Pendulum, a film that sold itself as Poe, hid an original psychological horror story inside that promise, and used performance, architecture, sound, and color to get under the audience's skin. It wasn't just trying to scare viewers, it was trying to trap them. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what's one horror movie scene you can never unsee.